Hey Monash, what's up?
Hey man, amazing. Good stuff.
Welcome back to the season 2 of the UBRIK Show. So basically, for people who are tuning in for the first time or might be seeing or listening, because this time we'll also be on an audio platforms as a podcast. So season 1, how was season 1, Monash? What do you have to say about season 1?
Now, season 1 was, I think, quite immediate. Yeah. So 2020 hit, and we probably transformed your living room into a studio. Yeah. And that is quick, but now we have kind of a lot more professional, a lot more nice looking lights. Yeah.
So yeah, like Monash said, 2020, because we had a lot of time, additional time, and a lot of uncertainty in hand. And there was a massive gap, I'm sure, for everybody. Like for everyone, we had this, a lot of our clients went, and we were in this limbo. And instead of, going down a negative rabbit hole, we thought, how can we make the best? So a video content, a show was something that we always had, even though we've done the digital disruptors before. So that is how, like Monash said, we started doing it. We did everything ourselves, everything in-house. And surprisingly, the results were quite decent. We even happened to close some business, which was very, precisely 2 new accounts we actually got because of that. So basically for season 2, we decided we'd take things up a notch, get it done more professionally. And office has not been occupied, right, Monash? We've not been using the office. So we thought we'll convert the office into a studio now. So, apart from that, how was 2020, Monash, as for the business, even personally, how was 2020 for you?
2020 was, it was a lot of surprise. We didn't expect, all this stuff. We had a total different trajectory planned. We had a lot of things. We have travels, which was planned. Unfortunately, 2020, all this did not happen. Yeah, definitely there was a lot of negative vibe in terms of people going through uncertainty, trouble. I personally lost somebody in the family and things like that. But from a professional angle, at least with UBRIK, I could just take a lot of positives out. Yeah. So we went through a lot of pressure. We had to transform the way we're doing things from spending and accountability of time to accountability of tasks. Yeah, we always wanted to do it at UBRIK. So we finally got some systems in place. So overall 2020, we had a lot of learnings. We had a lot of new business coming in, probably because of the line of business we are in. We are into the digital transformation things. So a lot of business needed us. So put together, 2020 was challenging. It gave us a lot of room for improvement, and what we are supposed to probably do in a couple of years, we could actually get it done in months. Yeah. So this is overall 2020, man. So, but Sheyaf, what about you, man? How was 2020 for you?
I think more or less 50 to 60% it's a shared experience. Both of us, we worked a lot on a lot of things. Most of those things that we mentioned, we worked on together. And I think personally, I think we found a lot of ground 2020. We were able to eliminate a lot of unwanted things, things which are not yielding results. But apart from that, I think if you remember in episode number 1, in the season number 1, we did a topic or an episode called To the Dubai Doubtful. Yeah. And I think today us sitting here and whatever we're going to say in the coming episodes is testament to that. Like we had spoken about how Dubai, being Dubai, how it has always come out, even the worst kind of situation. There are a lot of, international media, people are there who are just waiting to, something goes wrong. It's going wrong everywhere, but they just want to pinpoint, okay, Dubai, this is happening. But on the other hand, how, regardless of all the situations, because how visionary the leadership is, how things have come out. And today, us sitting here doing this and whatever we're going to say is going to be testament to that. So definitely, 2020 for me, personally, like you said, COVID did affect me, my family, a lot of people we know. There are people who we lost as well. But apart from that, the business side, I think it has really helped UBRIK personally. Okay, personally for both of us. It has really helped UBRIK. If you actually look at it, we've grown. We are in a better place than 2019 with regards to number of clients,
And the business.
And the
overall,
business overall. We have a very strong team now. And coming back to the point of Dubai being, ahead of the game. So Dubai was open. Yeah. And one of the most exciting things that happened to us during this time was because Dubai was open, we were able to forge a very, very interesting partnership. And this partnership, I know definitely, what you're talking about is the Market for Edu UBRIK partnership that we had. So long story short, Dubai was open. So Torio from Market for Edu had traveled to Dubai. He reached out to us on LinkedIn. We met, which really developed this new partnership. And because of this partnership now, something people who are listening might not know, like, okay, we've been around for 10 years. And in this 10 years, majority of our clientele has been universities, right? Education.
Yeah.
In education, specifically higher education universities. So this was one of the reasons that Market for Edu, in the coming episodes, we will speak more about Market for Edu, but they reached out to us and this partnership happened. And because of which we started focusing a lot more into education. So now coming to the topic of today's episode, Monash. Now, what I want to speak to today's episode is actually geared towards people from the education industry, higher education specifically. And there are a lot of learnings we've had in the past 10 years. Yeah. So what do you, the topic, for example, is something that we see and something that we've done quite a lot is paid media, like PPC campaigns, lead generation campaigns. But something we've realized now after this partnership and looking at every aspect of growth, we see universities relying quite a lot on paid media. Yeah, like when I say paid media, people who are, if you're from marketing, if you're from recruitment or admissions, you know what you're talking about. Talking about your the normal Facebook ads, Google ads, primarily for lead generation. Now, see, Monash, even before I jumped into this whole education bandwagon, you've been working on this. Do you think there is a problem here? Like, for example, the universities are heavily only reliant. Do you think there is a problem like this?
No, definitely. I think it all results from how marketing has been structured for the last few years. Yeah, I'm talking about 10 to 20 years. Whenever there's an intake, that usually happens in most universities 2 times in a year, or in some universities 3 times in a year, they heavily advertise and talk about what they have in offer in terms of the courses available, things like that. And before, it used to be newspaper ads. It used to be shows that they used to have,
basically offline stuff.
Offline stuff.
Yeah.
When online probably got introduced, and that when we started working on it, probably from 2010, it was advertising on the internet. Yeah. So it used to be ads on College Times, Gulf News, the digital versions, the online portals of them. And slowly now it's your Google, your Facebook ads, your Snapchat ads, your TikTok ads. Again, the culture has always been, there's admission coming, you need a lot of students at this particular time. So put all your forces together and make sure you put your best foot forward and see if you can collect inquiries from the market. So there's a lot of demand in the market, and this is geared towards capturing that demand. So this has been always the culture.
Basically, in simple terms, I think people what relate to, especially the marketing and enrollments, lead generation is the number one goal, definitely, and has to be the goal. But I think one of the reasons, Monash, I think one of the reasons everybody jumps into this and this switch from offline to online, this has happened 5 years back already. And with COVID, like they say, COVID is the best digital transformation catalyst. COVID really helped. So more and more people have started putting money. And because more and more people have actually come, more and more, every university out there, because there used to be a time when we used to speak to potential universities, they used to say, we are not doing Google ads. And we would be telling, you know what, we are really good at this. Let's start doing Google ads together. But today, I think 95% there is no university. Every university or higher education, for that matter, you speak to them, are already doing Google ads, and they are heavily spending. But I think one of the many reasons that people only rely on lead generation is because it is the easiest. And it is like, for example, it's the most easiest thing, because when it comes to running Google ads, one of the reason it's so easy is there is not much of effort. There is a way of doing it right and wrong, but for somebody who's starting, the platforms themselves, I remember 4 to 5 years back how Google and Facebook was compared to today. People who are just out, they have taken a certification from Google Digital Garage or Google, the Facebook Blueprint or a course on Udemy. They can just sit, if you have a credit card and if you have some details of what your course is, you have the campaign. Your campaign, the lead generation campaign is ready. Now the question is if you get proper results or not. But what do you think about it? Yeah.
Basically, probably another way to put it is you're throwing money at the problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is probably another reason why this is how the universities have structured their operations. Yeah. So you have a marketing department whose KPIs are to make sure that they get leads. Once these leads are then generated, then they're handed over to another department, which is admissions, who then processes these leads. So the KPI of marketing teams are to generate as many leads as possible.
And in this case, Google and Facebook, all these platforms
make it very, very easy. Google and Facebook makes it so easy. For example, few years back, there was nothing like a lead ad. A lead ad on Facebook or Instagram is you see an ad, you click on the ad, and things are already populated. Yeah, and probably within 3 seconds, you've already filled in the form and you have submitted. What happens is that KPI is being reached. So marketing today, they are getting that 30,000, 40,000 leads they're supposed to be generating. But unfortunately, these are very low intent leads.
Yeah.
And you must be speaking to a lot of admissions teams and how frustrated they are.
Yeah, I think
these.
Especially like Facebook lead ads and all usually is the best to fill the bucket, but really, really low on quality. But I also think this has a lot to do with the culture. Okay, culture in the sense, culture and mindset for this region at least. Because when you speak to, let's say, education in India or other developing markets, they don't actually look at lead gen like this. They don't heavily rely. They have a lot of other ways also, like predominantly many being offline. But I also definitely think this has a lot to do because when I say culture and historically, this is the safest bet. I think one of the main reasons marketeers, departments put all their eggs in this basket is this is the safest. Because I'm not saying they don't have to take responsibility. But what I'm saying is when you actually run ads, get the leads and connecting to what you said, their job is just to give these leads to the admissions and they're like, you know what? My KPI, and we come across this quite a lot when we speak to marketing people. Yeah, they say, you know what? My KPI is actually met. My job is to give them 1,000 leads. This is intake. And I've given it to them. And usually what we've seen is, it is not the best case scenario, yeah?
But Sheyaf, the thing is, I would like to cut a little slack for our marketing folks there, yeah? It's always because there's always silos of information. Yeah. So the marketing guys get all these leads, put it into a bucket. It is then handed over to the admission guys. There's not been a system in place where now things are connected. So the marketing guys are actually seeing what's happening with the sales guys, and
basically the disconnect. There is a disconnect
between the information, and there is no to and fro of information between marketing and sales.
I think this also. I think we discuss this quite often. I think this is not just the disconnect; it is by design. Like the KPIs are not defined from the get-go. Like marketing KPI is just leads. Admissions KPI is just take that lead and somehow convert them. So by design, I think so. But now moving forward, now we understand. Okay, everybody is heavily reliant. But just to frame this, how is this a challenge? Now we are saying, okay, paid. I think one of the main reasons why relying just on paid media is a challenge or a problem is year on year in the past 7 years, when we actually look at, we at UBRIK, for example, just to give you some context, we've easily managed close to 10 million dirhams in media spend over the past for higher education specifically. Yeah. So one thing, if you actually look at a campaign that we did like 6 years ago for Canadian University, yeah, and today the CPL, the CPC, basically the cost, what you were paying for one lead 5 years back versus today is drastically changed. And if anything, I think with COVID, yeah, there was initially a dip. CPCs have gone down. But now, for example, we are in middle of the intake season. every university. I'm sure this has reflected. So one of the biggest issues or problems or challenges that if you only rely on paid media is year on year, your CPL, your CPC, everything is going higher and higher.
So which is your cost of getting one lead
Yeah.
every year keeps increasing. And because of Corona, like Sheyaf, you mentioned, a big source of a lead generation was school visits for universities especially. School visits are not happening. And again, that effort, that money, that resources are again pumped into, like you said, the safest bet, that is throw money at the problem, fix it using ads, things like that. So today you have a lot of leads, and we keep mentioning this, that all leads are not created equal. So do we have a system in place at this point where you can distinguish between a lead that has come to your website, spent 10 minutes reading different pages, downloaded your brochure, and probably tried filling up a form, like probably pre-admissions or getting some information, versus somebody who's seen an ad on Facebook and clicked on the no more button? So what happens is, when these two leads have two different intent altogether. The lead number one has spent so much time and so much closer to your brand, and wants to get admitted into your university. And then you have a lead which is spent 30 seconds on your brand. When these are then handed over to admissions and they are treated equal, and for some reason when the sales guy calls them or the admission person calls them, they've not picked up the phone, they put into a bucket where, hey, not answered, badly.
I mean, this is something we've experienced quite a lot of time with some of our clients in the past but I think before getting into that's a huge problem by itself, which we'll look at later. But this thing of not all leads not being created equal, I think this is a very important point, and this is another very big challenge with lead gen. I mean, paid lead gen, this campaign, because you really don't understand. Every lead is treated equally, because throwing some marketing, not throw some marketing jargon, but I think by 2021, in 2015 it was a new thing. Each lead usually is in a different stage. Somebody's in awareness in the sense they're just realizing, somebody's in consideration, they are comparing between universities, let's say, and somebody's in a decision stage, like they are, okay, we want to take a decision. So each of this lead behaves differently. And one other thing also that we've learned from experience, and I'm talking about experiences, we've ran campaigns for many universities. Even though we say not to be arrogant, but we're pretty good at lead gen campaigns, at least in UAE, whatever we've run, even in GCC countries. But we've had situations where it's not been successful. We've had universities where we start working with, and results were not good. And when you actually look at this, when this initially last year before, we used to just feel we did not optimize the campaign well, all this stuff. But what we ended up realizing is the same budget, even the offerings are same, different universities are getting different results. And this was very, very interesting. And once you start looking at the data, once you start looking at the insights, that is when you realize where what is that factor? Why did you? I don't want to take names. We have a lot of names, but University X, for example, that has been our client for 5-6 years, versus University Y, which has been our client for 3-4 years. And the Y is spending even more budget and
getting
X
lower results.
That is when you start looking. Last year we started doing this because we had a lot of time. And then we realized universities which have better brand recall, brand value. One. Second, universities which have better course offerings as well. They started getting lower CPCs and better results.
True.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't mind taking names. So there is somebody called Naheed Malik.
Yeah.
She was in UOWD before, and then went to CUD as heading marketing and admissions and communications. So she always had the struggle of justifying all the other kinds of your so-called brand awareness mediums, like your radio, your outdoor, because there is this, when you look at data, it's very
difficult to
understand.
Gauge.
So probably a technical thing, or probably if anybody is listening to this, if they can look into this and think about this, there is something called a last click attribution. So last click attribution is how do the lead come to you by filling the form? It could be through a Google ad, yeah. But what resulted him to a Google ad could be your video about how student life is, or your professor going on a radio show and telling how good architecture is for Dubai and stuff like that. So, but this is not attributed. Yeah. And this no attribution leads to spending more money on places. You know what? Google is giving me a lot of leads. Let's stop the radio spots. Let's stop the videos. We just focus on these.
Yeah, stuff. I think this is why, because one of the universities that we work with, they were doing a lot of outdoor, right? And we honestly, 3-4 years, we used to feel this money was not, being spent wisely. But then we started looking at the campaigns. We can see the clear difference is all this outdoor. I stand corrected. I think in the first season of Digital Disruptors, we stand corrected. We said this, maybe spending money on hoarding is not a good idea. But when you actually look, it actually helps your PPC campaigns as well. Quite a lot. So this is one interesting point. Now just to, ties everything up, Solution, for example, I mean, we are in a place to understand. So after understanding all these issues, we are looking how can we actually solve. And this is where definitely after this collaboration we had in Market for Edu, right? They come from a whole different school of thought. Now, we cannot blame the universities for heavily relying on paid media. Seriously saying, because this is what we were offering primarily. Okay, we used to talk about everything else, but our bread and butter, end of the day, was
to hit those KPIs.
Of lead generation. Because we also only used to think about lead generation. But after, collaborating with Market for Edu, we started seeing their philosophy. Their philosophy is not lead generation. Their philosophy is lead to enrollment.
Mm-hmm. So basically it is optimize all your efforts towards admissions.
And
towards enrollment.
And I think this is something that hopefully we will do maybe just an episode how we actually go about this, because people think how can you do paid campaigns, lead generation, just focusing on enrollment.
And Sheyaf, when we've probably a year back, when we were looking into some data, especially what Market for Edu was showing us, we were also quite surprised. And you know what? How is this possible? And how can you optimize your efforts towards admissions with multiple systems in place and not talking to each other and stuff like that? But what we realized that is, if you start looking at your enrollment data, people who have enrolled, a huge percentage actually comes from something called an organic traffic. A direct traffic. I
mean, this is right now, when you look at now, again, coming to the solution. So definitely one solution is to identify, first you have to identify where your enrollments. So end of the day, end of this September intake, if a university has say 500 enrollments, I'm very clear, I'm quite sure at least 60 to 70% of universities that we've spoken to, nobody has a system in place to actually track back and see where originally this lead came from. Was it paid? What is organic? They have very rough, but the data gets skewed more and more and more. It gets lost in between. Okay, and many people are still using Excel sheets and stuff like this. So
and Sheyaf, just for everybody who's listening, I mean, what is organic and what is direct? Can you just define that for us?
So where I was getting to is organic traffic is definitely the traffic that is coming to your website. They're finding you through search. Okay. Direct, basically they went to Google and they typed, if for in a university's context, they're searching for a particular course that you might be offering. That is one. Second is also when they search for your university brand name and you come without an ad. Organic. Second is direct traffic. Direct traffic is basically where somebody knows if you are UBRIK.com and they came directly to university, that's direct traffic. And when we look at data, we started looking at data this year, by the way. Before, we never used to ask our university clients to give us analytics access. When you look, all the universities, majority of them, who spend a lot of money on paid itself, but still their number one and number two source of traffic is always organic and direct. This keeps playing around. For some people, organic is number one. For some people, direct. Direct because students are coming, the teachers might be coming. And this is the most surprising. And when you compare this data with the amount of time spent and bounce rate, right? Always paid has the lowest time spent and the highest bounce rate. Whereas organic and direct traffic, let's talk about organic only.
And it's natural, right? So
Yeah.
so somebody is searching for a solution that he needs. So he's looking at architecture courses and he's coming and reading about this stuff, and that is organic, yeah. And they would spend 3 minutes, 4 minutes to go through the pages, look at the videos, look at what are the possibilities. Versus, I'm going through Facebook, I'm looking at Snapchat, and suddenly, boom, I'm getting an ad, and it talks about the architecture program. And you know what? I was doing something else totally. I see this ad, I click on the ad, I would spend 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and I have to get back to my Snapchat, right? Otherwise, those things will
And more than ever, like, one small pointer of optimizing for enrollments. Most of the ads these days, many of us see, even we are guilty of this in the past, is we run ads which are on the decision stage usually. So one of the things is when you're running these ads, talk something other than just enrolling or inquiring right now, maybe something else. So solution over here is, because we see organic and direct traffic having more time, less bounce rates, that's more time being spent. Start, this is a very common cliche, maybe, what do you call SEO? Start looking at SEO a bit more seriously. And SEO does not mean every university that we speak to, they are doing SEO. But how many of you guys are actually doing this right is a very big. And when I'm talking about SEO, before you get into the content, majority of it, we've analyzed almost 10 websites till now. Okay, using some of them where we have access, some of them using SEMrush and all. We can see most of the universities, their SEO is quite, there is a pattern that you see is quite bad. More than the content, it is usually the technical side of the SEO, because this makes a lot of difference on when Google starts ranking you better. Yeah. And one more very interesting aspect also, when you have more traffic from organic sources. Now, we don't have this data here in Dubai, and neither, I'm sure, none of the universities have. But again, citing some data that we saw from Market Fordu for the Latin American markets, US markets, end of the year, when you actually look, the enrollments that originated from organic sources, end of the day, have a higher retention rate. Like, people don't drop. Like, they don't leave the course, leave the courses. I mean, when I heard it first, it's a stretch. But if you think about it, where they started from day one, right? There was, there was the intent was there. Why people actually came and enrolled. Versus somebody who came through an ad, and your admission, the person who was sitting there was very smart and convinced them. But maybe after one semester, they felt like, this is not for me. This course is not for me. This university is not for me. So this is something which is very interesting. And one more thing, lastly, what you can actually also add, universities or marketing people who are listening, is your website. We are talking about organic. So you want people to spend more time. Maybe add more reasons. Again, in the past 3 to 4 months, I have personally looked at 15 to 20 university websites here in the UAE. Yeah. It's like everybody, majority of them have taken the wireframe from each other, or at least, I'm not saying nobody's taken from each other, but the pattern is the same.
Inspired is the right thing.
Yeah, inspired. Website, your homepage, every page is flooded with inquire now, enroll now, inquire now, enroll now. There is no other option in the website. So anybody who's...
I think this is, Sheyaf, what you're talking about, the decision stage, yeah?
Yeah.
So the reason I would come to a university website is only if I want to take admissions. Yeah. But very interesting data that we were looking at and you guys were crunching was an average cycle of somebody from being a lead to being a student is over 18 months. Yeah.
No, 8 months.
8 months.
Yeah. Close to... So just to, sorry, Monash, you triggered me because this data is crazy the first time we saw. So average anybody, 8 months to 1 year sometimes, because somebody who's looking for enrolling this year might already have clicked on your ad. After they clicked on your ad, they will come as organic traffic. Again, they will interact with your ad. And maybe for this particular intake, they just decided that, you know what, I don't want to enroll for this year.
No, and it's very relevant because you're doing a very high ticket purchase, yeah?
Just to add one more thing, Monash. And traditionally what happens is leads that came for September intake, let's say 2021, and did not convert, most of the time because you don't have systems in place, are dumped out. So ideally, this particular lead, they must have said, I will enroll next year. Or they did not say anything, I will enroll, but they did not enroll. if there was some mechanism or somebody in the sales or admission remembered for the next intake, the Jan or the next upcoming intake, they would have enrolled. So I'm like, this is definitely so average what we've seen for higher education and even for schools, be it a parent or a student, they usually like to think about 6 to 8 months sometimes.
Or in fact, sometimes more, yeah?
Even more, maybe a year. So, and the more reasons that you give them to come to your website. A small example is if you're in Dubai universities, many universities attract a lot of people from outside UAE. Okay, many universities we know. There needs to be a lot more on your website. And looking at, we start looking at heat maps. We install Lucky Orange, which is a tool to actually see how people are. Most of the universities' websites that we know, a lot of students go and click on student life, campus life, more than the courses sometimes. So this means there is definitely an interest. So I mean, even about this in coming episodes, we'll actually talk about how to actually take these decisions more data-centric. So anyway, so, I think, Monash, we can, we don't want to give out everything today's episode.
No, but the thing is, definitely, I think looking at data of your enrollment is very important. Number one, focusing on organic is important. And organic need not be, like you said, things like, just about your university or courses, but it could be about living in Dubai, the visa options in Dubai. Basically
adding more relevant content on your website.
Yeah, and because Dubai is a place where a lot of people travel and want to actually study here. And giving those informations out and creating pages of that, you can actually save a lot of money from your international paid media campaigns.
And also one very interesting tip with some of the universities we've seen implementing this already is on your course pages, give options other than just the course. You add in some CTAs. Let's say even they came from an ad, be it your landing page or your course pages. Add some CTAs over there, which is, giving them more information. And one small information you can add is if you take this course, what are the kinds of jobs that you can get into?
The career paths.
Or add a testimonial from an alumni who has taken this course and has landed a job. Might sound like a very small thing, but you will be amazed the kind of results that it can actually bring. Because you are kind of reaffirming that if you do this course, this is somebody
where you can actually you can actually end up with. And I think for the jargon of CTA, it's basically something like a lead magnet or basically a PDF download. A call to action with a download, which is not just inquire now. So stop looking at inquire now or enroll now.
Enroll now and inquire now.
And rather give valuable information content which can be downloadable using a username with the name, email address and telephone number.
Also with more and more millennials and Gen Z especially who are coming to the university, they generally have a resentment to just giving the details, or they feel this is too much commitment already. We just want to get to know you. Anyway, so I think Monash, I think we've covered this whole topic about the education sector's reliance, specifically universities in UAE, how they're relying very heavily on paid media and how they can maybe mix it up a bit. So guys, hopefully, there are some lot of learnings from this. If you guys want to, if there is any specific points that we've spoken about, you want us to elaborate, we would really love that. We would really love to do that. And hopefully in the coming episodes, this season, specifically season number 2, there is going to be a lot more of focus on education. And hopefully in the coming episodes, we'll also have, we spoke a lot about Market for Edu today. So we'll also be having one of the co-founders of Market for Edu in the coming episodes as well.
Amazing. Looking forward, man. Looking forward.
So I think that's all, guys. So let us know what you think, and we will see you in the next episode. Take care and bye-bye.